The next tip I had for you is about mines, that their primary use is actually as a psychological weapon. The greatest fear is the fear of the unknown. In order to win the game, a player must make aggressive moves and claim territory. If a player is running into mines, even if it's just sporadically, it will continuously reinforce him to be passive. A single mine planted and stepped on transforms into a high density minefield of hundreds of meters thick in the mind of the enemy, even if in reality there are hardly anything there. So if a person steps on one of these mines in this light minefield, in his head, it looks more like this, and it's just infinite in depth. So the next tip is mines are a psychological weapon, so keep that in mind. Sometimes it's better to actually show weak points of your tank. In this example here, we've got a T-70, and we're going to pretend that we maybe just took a tank fight here, and we won, and we want to get out of here as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. So you need to make the mental calculation if the threats, the unknown threats or known threats in the close range are more scary, or if the far threats are more scary. If the close range threats are more scary, it may be better to show the rear of your tank and actually just drive away that way rather than slowly reversing. So if we were to slowly reverse here towards safety, which I'm marked by this motorcycle, it would take us quite a bit longer than if we actually just make an about face and start running just on our straight ahead. So it's a calculation you need to make, and we'll just demonstrate how long it takes to. We're going to pretend this motorcycle is safety, and we're going to back up. We're going to start at 0730 and see how long it takes. We're sort of pretending that there's unknown threats here, possibly AT guys or who knows what. And then if you see how slow we are, an AT guy running up here, he'll be in range, and we're shot, and then maybe right around here, we're dead. So oftentimes if there's enemies or potential enemies in the close range, it can be better to just do an about face and turn around. It's probably going to take about 30 seconds here to get to what I would deem, safe. Oops, goodbye, motorcycle. So yeah, about 28 seconds. So on the reverse. And we'll do the same thing with just turning around. Start at the 20. Okay, so we're extra exposed here, but just for a few seconds, and then we're going to get up to top speed. And we're at relative safely right about now. So it's about twice as fast. So sometimes it's better to just show your butt for a little while rather than be a target, even if your front armor is technically stronger. So you need to make that mental calculation. And obviously, if we have vision on their spawn, it's going to spawn. You can decide, okay, well, I want to pull out now. So just keep in mind, sometimes it's better. The takeaway here from the tip is sometimes it's better to show a weak spot of the tank. You don't always need to reverse, and sometimes it's better to not reverse. The next tip I'd like to discuss comes from Chairman Mao. It's the concept of trading space for time. In this example, we've got a rifle squad here dug in, and we're pretending that to the west, enemy fire support has become superior, and they're pushing us. They've killed our tanks, and the situation's not looking good. So in this situation, completely fine to trade space for time. So we could lie our guys down. We could put them on return fire. So at this point, they're no longer able to engage here, and we're not able. They're not able to engage us. So we're trading space for more time, hopefully to bring in assets. If they continue to push, we could even conduct a retreat here and try to fall these guys back before the position is overrun. So create the smallest silhouette possible for yourself if enemy fire support becomes superior, and wait for your own fire support to match it in parity. So that would be my next tip: is trade space. Don't be afraid to trade space for time. The next tip I've got for you is that you need to play the game like there is no AI. Change your mindset from that this is an RTS to this is a third-person action game, and you'll have a lot more success. With a few exceptions that we'll go over, all units perform about I'm going to say about 250% better when controlled by a human. There are a couple exceptions to that, which we'll go over on the next tip, but by and large, if you're controlling it, you're going to have a better time. Have some confidence. The AI is pretty poor, so a couple big problems are your AI tanks do not target enemy weak points. They basically just fire at center mass, and their spread goes where it will. So they're not going to fire into gun ports. They're not going to fire at tracks specifically. They're not going to fire where the angle is weaker. So manually controlling the tanks, you have all control over that. So super important. Infantry with this is an important one. Infantry with automatic weapons. If under AI control, only do bursts. So even if there was 3 guys in front of this guy here, this guy would go. And then obviously, if you're in control of this guy, you can just mag dump the entire squad, and so that's important. So another important one is if you don't manually control your high value infantry, you won't be able to take evasive maneuvers. So say this is an enemy tank, and we go over here and we just click it. This guy will run in a straight line, and then he'll be more likely to be shot. But although if we take a direct control, we can hold shift, and then we're dodging right and left and dodging stuff. So that's important. That's another reason why you shouldn't let the AI do too much. Another big problem is tanks. AI doesn't have the ability to prioritize targets. So if there was a motorcycle here and a King Tiger here, this tank would likely fire at the motorcycle first and not at the King Tiger. Even if the Tiger was facing backwards, just begging to die, it was like all the crew was suicidal. The T-34 would just go for the motorcycle because the AI doesn't know how to prioritize targets. So another reason why you need to be taking control of all your units if possible, or not all your units, but most of your units. We'll go through the exceptions next, but the sooner you realize you're playing a third-person game disguised as an RTS, the better you'll do. Well, that's my next tip, is don't rely on the AI, take control. There are a few exceptions where the AI is actually superior, and we're going to go over those now. The best example I have of that is Panzer Fausts. A lot of times, super fast-moving targets like scout cars at extreme speeds, it'll be superior to have the AI control the Panzer Faust. What seems to happen is that if the AI fires the Panzer Faust, there's basically a in-game chance calculation that's done, and if you're lucky, the payload's just going to have a homing effect, so it'll just take a direct 90-degree turn and fly right at the target, so you'll 100% hit if it rolls in your favor. So for example, if this scout car was traveling on this trajectory here, and there's an elevation change, and I'm at max range, I might hit this shot maybe 5% of the time. If you have to factor in so many stuff, you've got a vehicle traveling at 40 kilometers an hour. There's a elevation change. There's flight delay. There's spread, and then there's delay due to lag. So I'm gonna hit that shot maybe 5% of the time, and I'm a pretty good shot with these Panzerfaust. So better to let the AI do it. If the AI took that shot, he might have a 30% chance to hit. So in this instance, better sometimes Panzerfaust are a special thing where it is a lot better to let them go. So if we just this guy here, hopefully I don't prove myself wrong here, but I guess 5% is a chance. So see, there's a miss there, and that was my best try. So AI probably had a 30%. I got pretty close there, but still missed. Lots of transversal there, So oftentimes let the AI fire your Panzerfaust, especially if the target is quick. Another circumstance to have your AI take over is if you have a fast-moving target at max range, and you've got a cannon or some kind of tank. Better to let the AI take that as well. Basically, fast-moving targets, sometimes the AI is superior, and you'll learn those as you go. But yeah, same with Panzer Schrecks as well. Fast-moving targets, especially if the transversal's high because they're so close, sometimes better just to let the AI take the shot. And that's my next tip. So a couple units to be aware that the AI is better than, but very, very, very few cases. The next tip I wanted to go over was the concept of having or trying to have escalation dominance. If possible, try to have escalation dominance. If your opponent, for example, if your opponent buys a T-34-85, which the German price equivalent would be something like a Panzer IV, it's often, not always, better to simply minimize and absorb the damage. So lie your troops down, fall back, and trade space for time, basically, while saving for a tank that outmatches the T-34, such as a Panther. So instead of buying the equivalent of a T-34, we're going to try to absorb the damage that it's going to do, and then outclass that tank. And that's the concept of having escalation dominance, and it's an important concept. So. Also, don't look at my spelling here. I'm so used to spell checker that I get lazy with my spelling when typing. So yeah, escalation dominance, another important tip. The next concept we're going to go over is do not over-escalate. For example, if the enemy has a scout car, you should not be buying a Panther to counter it. You should be buying a counter that's about one tier above the threat and not two tiers above it. If you make this mistake a lot of over-escalating, you'll find that you're playing with too many eggs in one basket, and or if you're familiar with grand strategy, you're playing tall, way tall instead of wide. So you'll have most of your resources in a few units, and you'll have large gaps in your abilities on the front. So don't over-escalate. Just one tier above the enemy threat is sufficient, or you'll find you're lacking elsewhere because you won't have resources to buy everything you need. Do not over-escalate. Next tip we're going to go over is properly exploiting victories. In this example here, we're going to say that we won the first tank battle. This is our tank here, and we've killed a tank up here. Most players at that point will probably back off their tank and then do something else. But really what you want to be doing is capitalizing on this limited window where you have fire superiority to maximize the damage you do. So you can either push your tank up to and switch high explosive and start killing infantry. You could combine that with an infantry assault to take more territories. You need to be exploiting the victories to capitalize on them so they compound and compound. Yeah, and then another thing too is, say we killed a tank here and there's a lot of infantry left over. Another good thing is grab a high DPS vehicle like this. They can quickly get to the front and then maximize our damage here because we've got no counters here now. It's hopefully just infantry because we've won the tank battle. So we exploit our victories and then roll them into new victories. So don't just kill a tank and then have nothing. So exploit once you find a small hole, exploit that hole as much as possible because you'll have dominance here for maybe 60 seconds until the enemy has another asset he can call up. So really take that to heart. Properly exploit your victories. This next tip doesn't require any visual aids, so we're just going to be looking at this church while I read my notepad here. So there's two player archetypes, and I classify those as proactive players and reactive players. And neither of these are derogatory terms. They're just two different play styles, and they both have disadvantages and advantages. Proactive players, they set the tempo of the game. They'll be the first people to deploy higher tier units. They'll be the first one to get a scout car. They'll be the first one to get a tank. They'll be the first one to get an arty. One of those. They're always upping the ante. And they'll enjoy a limited window where whatever they chose will have no answer from the enemy player likely. And they need to get enough value during that time because the reactive player, which is the other archetype, is going to be picking a counter to that unit. The reactive player stays as limber as possible, and they're trying to save as much manpower as possible to be able to afford whatever the counter to whatever the proactive player picks. So one example for this maybe is if the if the proactive player gets a field gun, the the reactive player might get a mortar. So if there's a, he could put the mortar here and then kill the field gun. So there's, it's your react. So it's just two types of players. These rules switch back and forth in close games. So if you're the proactive player at the beginning, maybe at the end you're having to, if things didn't go well, or just maybe you're changing your strategy, maybe you're the opposite as the game goes on. So just think of these two archetypes and kind of think about where you fit in there, and then can help you understand the game flow a little better. So two archetypes, proactive and reactive. And the last tip I have for you is team game communication. A lot of people don't realize that the game actually has VoIP, and you can press U to activate it. It's push to talk. Also, 2N activates a ping menu, just in case you haven't seen it. I'm sure you have, but here's your things. Some important ones I really like are moving to location. I'll use that anytime I'm about to engage a tank. I'll use watch out here anytime there's a new threat. So I'll ping that and then identify the threat. And that's basically the two I use most are these two here. So if I'm pushing a tank to let my buddy know that, hey, this is a good time to also push, or if you need to fall back, this is a good time to fall back. And then watch out here is just a general, hey, look here. So those are my two favorite. Some other good callouts just for audio through the VoIP, or if you're in Discord, are oops, let me just stop this. It's going to bother me. All new targets should be called out and identified. For example, P4 left. Try to condense the names of tanks. So instead of Panzer IV, just call it P4, or you can shorten it as much as possible just to make the callouts quicker. Enemy subsystems disabled should be called out. For example, Panther left tracked. That's super important. That if your friend has a bomb, he can start bombing it. You can flank it and get a side shot, or one of your buddies can. So super important. Calling out enemy subsystem disabled. Another good call out is friendly subsystems disabled. For example, my T-34-85 left is turreted, so my buddy knows, okay, he's obviously in a tank battle. His tank just got knocked out. I should support him. Maybe I can smoke him out if I've got infantry nearby. Just it's a SOS. Hey, come help me. I'm not doing good. Next is breakthroughs should be announced, and I'm defining a breakthrough as an enemy flank where it's yielding many meters of territory in quick succession. So, for example, a call out for that would be, hey, breakthrough right, so that we know, hey, we're pushing here. If you want to exploit this with me, or be aware that we're breaking through it. So just a good morale, good for morale. On the opposite side of that, collapses should be announced as well. Collapse defined as a flank, a friendly flank, yielding many meters of territory quickly. The call out for that would be left is collapsing. Next, we've got repositioning of high-value enemy assets should be called out. For example, tiger moving left. Super important to have everyone be on the same page of where enemy assets are moving, and if they're creating a very strong flank. So if all the vehicles seem to be moving to the left side, well, yeah, that needs to be called out. If you destroy any high-value vehicles, I usually wouldn't like after late game, or sorry, after mid game, maybe stop calling out like scout cars and stuff. But any tanks at all should be called out when they're killed. For example, left Stuk killed. And then for the last communication tip, special care should be given to call out assets such as enemy signal flares, enemy bombers, and flanking scout cars. Those are all very dangerous and need to be called out. Signal flare, obvious. You've got 10 seconds to pull out everything there, so super important to call those out in VoIP. Enemy bombers, a lot of times people are busy doing other things, and if they've got someone to say, hey, bomber's coming, it can give them time to move artillery or whatever is being bombed. And the last one is flanking scout cars. They can be a big trouble if you've got artillery in the back line, and if no one calls it out, a flanking scout car can do a lot of damage back in the back line. So these are team gaming communication tips, and this finishes my more niche tips for Gates of Hell. I hope you enjoyed, and hope you didn't take too much offense to my poor spelling. It's very much used to having a spell checker at this point. And goodbye.